Does anyone actually remember Incredibles 2? Considering this movie released over 6 years ago already, it's not exactly uncommon for people to forget what this thing is really all about. So what's with Incredibles 2? Is it what you think it is? Is it actually a good movie? If you're like me, you probably kinda sorta remember what happens in this film. Elastigirl being all stretchy, Mr. Incredible being a dad, that one guy who just pukes all the time. It's kinda weird. The truth is, the generation of kids who grew up watching the original movie were super excited for the sequel. I know, I was one of them. But despite the hype geared towards millennials almost exclusively, turns out this movie is actually not at all what you might remember it being. I remember everyone talking about how Incredibles 2 could be movie of the decade. But if you were someone who watched the movie when it came out, you know that wasn't the case. Don't get me wrong, Incredibles 2 has some surprisingly great moments. There's a lot to this movie, and instead of straight up bashing it like everyone else on this platform, I thought it'd be a cool idea to watch the movie Incredibles 2 in full to find out if it's actually a great movie or just another pile of garbage ready to be set on fire. I'll be explaining what happens in this movie in depth while also explaining all the little things that don't really seem to matter. So grab your copy of Pokemon Soul Silver for the Nintendo DS, and let's jump into a movie that's often misunderstood, Incredibles 2. This movie begins right where the last one left off. Seriously, I think maybe 5 minutes have passed since the end of the first Incredibles movie. We see Mr. Incredible hanging on for dear life, trying to catch the Underminer. It took me 15 years to find out why it's called the Underminer. I get it now. This dude's whole thing is that he mines underground. He must play a lot of Minecraft. He's very good at it. The Underminer! The whole plan here is that the Underminer blew up the ground underneath a bank, so naturally the entire bank fell perfectly in front of him, and now he's able to suck all the money up with his Eureka Whirlwind 2.5 liter large capacity dust cup bagless canister vacuum cleaner. This is when Mr. Incredible shows up to stop him, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, he fails miserably and gets sucked up. Also, I gotta ask this real quick, was there no one in the bank at all? Like when it fell, we don't see any people or hear any screams, and it was definitely midday when this happened. So, I don't know, rip random bank workers, I guess. Anyway, the two fist fight for a bit. It's kind of weird because Mr. Incredible's whole thing is that he's very strong, but he struggles in a 1v1 against this, like, mole person. Believe it or not, this part isn't that important. Eventually, the Underminer gets away with all the money. I'm sure he'll be very responsible with it. Mr. Incredible breaks the giant drill machine that he's in, and it surfaces, causing panic throughout the area. This is when the rest of the family, including Frozone, finally show up to help. What were they doing this entire time? Like, Violet especially, she's super OP. She could have made some bubble around the Underminer and it would have been over with, I feel like, but whatever. Anyway, this opening section is kind of dragged out for the purpose of showing the audience an epic action scene. Everyone helps in stopping the drill from hitting the City Hall building because I guess that's the most important building in the world. The drill already ran through multiple other buildings and bridges, but those were just regular people, so who cares? Anyway, they all use their powers in a very unique way to stop the drill and save themselves, except for Dash. He's just kind of there, to be honest. But if you remember from the first movie, superheroes are kind of illegal around here, so unfortunately, the family immediately gets 5 stars, and they have to call Lester to avoid the police. Important to mention here that Frozone got away before the cops showed up. He got approached by some guy who quickly asks if he wants superheroes to be allowed in society again. It's very vague. The whole scene is like 15 seconds. What does it mean? So many questions. The whole Incredible family is now getting interrogated. I guess they're in trouble because the Underminer got away. They should have played their own PS2 game. They would have known how to beat him then. A little later, and the family is no longer in disguise. We find out they've been living in a motel for a while now. But I thought this movie took place right after the first movie, and they weren't living in a motel then, I don't think. I honestly have no idea.
All vegetables? Who wanted all vegetables?
Why did he say it like that? He said it like a mob boss. I'm walking in. The whole family has an intense argument at the dinner table. It's exactly like the first movie, honestly. Later that night, Bob and Helen are talking by the pool, being super sad and mysterious and stuff. I'm not gonna go over every main character in this movie since most of them are just reoccurring characters from the first one. So if you know literally nothing about The Incredibles for some reason, just watch the video I did on the first movie. I hate advertising it that way, but honestly, just watch it, okay? It'll be easier that way. Anyway, Frozone shows up and he's like, hey, I know everyone's depressed, but some random CEO wants to meet up with some supers. You guys in? Of course, these two say yes because they both have a crack-like addiction to using their powers. I'm pretty sure Mr. Incredible's heart rate goes up every time he sees someone with muscles. So Frozone plus the parents meet up with someone named Winston. Turns out he's kind of a tech giant in the industry, and also he just really happens to like superheroes.
Mr. Incredible. Incredible.
Technology Technology as a whole plays a large part in this movie. A lot of it can be used for good, and a lot of it, as we'll see, can be used for evil. Seriously, just wait till you see what happens later. As someone who loves watching movies, I'm always online, and that can put me at risk for a lot of cybersecurity threats. You ever click on a link for free RuneScape gold only to lose the last 10 years of your life? How about an ad for local cartoon women who just want to have a good time? Thankfully, today's sponsor, NordVPN, is a powerful defense against these targeted attacks. With NordVPN, I can ensure that my internet activity is secure. That's some good stuff. NordVPN provides top-notch encryption to secure all your internet data with features like CyberSec, KillSwitch, and thousands of servers worldwide. It provides both speed and security. One of my favorite ways to use NordVPN is to access region-locked content. NordVPN allows you to easily switch your IP address to thousands of areas around the world. So let's say you want to watch the 2004 banger animated movie Shark Tale, but for some reason Netflix decides Canadians don't get to watch that movie. I really want to watch it, Netflix. Get out of my way. Simply changing my region to something a little more American allows me to watch this movie at any time. It's really that easy. Also, with NordVPN, all your internet data is secured with top-notch encryption, and they don't track or log your private data at all. I cannot stress this enough. If you're looking to stay safe online, NordVPN has got you covered. Your privacy is actually their priority. Right now, when you use my link, you'll get a huge discount on a 2-year plan, plus 4 additional bonus months. Get it at nordvpn.com/Darzii. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and it's the best deal on the internet. I'm dead serious. You cannot get this deal anywhere else but right here on YouTube. Get it at nordvpn.com/Darzii or click the link in the description. Back to the video. This is when we also meet Winston's sister, Evelyn. She's a little rougher around the edges, but overall seems like a really cool and honest person. She's kind of the person that develops the tech, and Winston's just the guy that, like, owns it, I guess. What do CEOs even do? They just like own it, you know? They don't even do anything. Winston tells the story about how his dad loved superheroes. His dad was this self-made millionaire who actually owned the company before him, and turns out he was the super's biggest supporter. Winston's dad even had 2 direct phone lines to Gazerbeam and Phyronic, whoever that is. The point is, Winston's dad liked superheroes a lot, and if this was 2024, he'd probably have a Discord server with all of the supers in it, okay? Winston explains that one night some burglars broke into his dad's house, so immediately he tried using the phones, but since superheroes were just made illegal then, there was no answer, so he ended up getting shot by a Silver 1 player on Dust 2. No, but seriously, Winston blames his dad's death on the superhero ban, so his whole thing is that he wants to get supers legal again.
Especially for Mother. She died a few months later. Heartbreak.
Jeez, ever dramatic, dude. They just didn't know what to do with the mother. Just have her die of sadness. We don't care. The reason for Winston calling these guys over is that he's got a plan to get supers back in the public eye. Basically, he'll have them save people again, but he's gonna handle the publicity so they're shown in a more positive light. Winston actually recommends starting off with Elastigirl because she's thick with 2 C's and doesn't break literally everything she touches. Seriously, Mr. Incredible, you have to work on that. Later that night, Bob, who's Mr. Incredible, is complaining like a baby. He's kind of mad that he didn't get chosen, which is a little toxic, honestly. Like, try to be happy for your wife maybe one time in this movie. But eventually the two agree to basically swap roles from the first movie. This is probably the biggest part of this movie, is that the mom and dad basically just swap characters. Elastigirl will go out and save the world, while Mr. Incredible will do something arguably way more difficult: attempt to watch the kids. Terrifying. I know. The family is moved into some super fancy rich person house because Winston is extremely rich and can afford at least 3 PS5 Pros. Not 4 though, that's too expensive. Winston, being a tech guy, has made the house pretty technologically advanced. It's got some moving floors, indoor waterfalls. There's honestly way too much. It's very confusing to control. After the family plays with the house for a bit, Elastigirl puts on her superhero outfit and heads to the garage where she finds a brand new motorcycle waiting for her. This thing looks exactly like the flying bike from GTA 5. Hopefully it's fully upgraded. Elastigirl is riding around at 100 miles per hour, but it's probably okay since she's a human airbag. Meanwhile, we get our first real look at Mr. Incredible, aka Bob, being an actual parent. No superhero stuff involved. He's just a dad. He tells their kids what their mom is up to because I guess they have no idea until this point. Bob gets annoyed very quickly. It's clear that he has like no patience at all, which is sure to make his side of the story very interesting, right?
Hey, the bus is here! Whoa,
he's like, hey, look at that! Get the f out of my house! Dash and Violet leave for school, and then, I'm not kidding, we cut to later that night when it's time for bed. Jack is put to sleep, and Dash has an important message for his father.
Hello, I'm Luigi, and I'm here today to tell you all about puberty.
Seriously though, Dash needs help with his math homework, so Bob stays up helping him. It's this scene where we get the first iconic meme, where the most insufferable person you know is probably using it to shill their Twitter page or something. Meanwhile, Elastigirl is finally doing something now. I guess there's this bullet train and there's a bunch of important people on it, because of course there is. For some reason, the train is going the opposite way it's supposed to go, so Elastigirl has to catch up to it and stop the train herself. Again, we had a scene like this in the first movie with the train. There's a lot of parallels like this between the two movies. It happens a million times. And yeah, she just does it, by the way. The bullet train is going like 200 miles per hour, but she's very stretchy, so I guess she's faster or something. She kind of struggles at first because she doesn't have, oh, I don't know, superhuman strength. No, instead, Elastigirl uses her ult, which is parachute mode, and thankfully that's enough to avoid a catastrophe. The important thing to note here is that the guy in charge of driving the train is kind of out of it. There's this brief flashing on his monitor and it looks like he just woke up. I think he was playing Friday Night Funkin' or something. But seriously, there's a quick message on the screen saying welcome back, Elastigirl, signed off by someone called the Screenslaver. Very scary. Real quick, back with the rest of the family. Everyone's asleep now except for Jack Jack. There's a scene where Jack Jack sees a raccoon outside and thinks it's a criminal because of the similar eye mask thing they wear. It's pretty funny, actually. Reminder that at the end of the first movie, the audience finds out that Jack Jack is super OP and has like a million powers. I had countless comments letting me know that he gets his name from the term Jack of all trades because he can literally do it all. So thank you, comments, for letting me know every day for the past 4 months. Jack Jack has a 1v1 with the raccoon, and obviously he kind of obliterates this guy. He has a Homelander moment. It's all very cool. I can't show the whole scene in full here for obvious reasons, but it gets pretty wild, just trust me. Bob gets all hyped because this is when he finds out that his baby boy has a bunch of different powers. I thought everyone knew Jack Jack had powers at the end of the last movie, but I guess no one knew the whole time. Not really sure why I thought that, but I did. Dude almost died to a 1-year-old. That would have been embarrassing. Bob gets a quick call from his wife Helen, and aside from checking in on the kids, she's also low-key bragging about saving a train. Turns out Bob is actually really jealous about this, so instead of being happy for her at all, he's all grumpy and fakes his own excitement for her. That's kind of toxic, Bob. You should really use a full heal. The next day, an Elastigirl has this big interview on TV or something. Reminder that superheroes are still illegal, even if she did save a train. So like, this is a little weird. It's implied that Winston has a bunch of connections, so he makes it work, but like, yeah, I don't know. Everyone already knows superheroes can save people. They've done it before. It's just a little odd how fast everything moves in this movie, honestly. It doesn't really make that much sense. During her interview, the weird flashing pattern appears on screen again, which hypnotizes everyone in the area. Turns out this is another attack from that Screenslaver guy. It's kind of funny how he uses a hypnotic screensaver to control people. Very clever. Apparently, this villain has access to every single screen ever because he makes 2 helicopters, one of which has the mayor in it, crash into each other. It's too bad Screenslaver didn't account for Elastigirl hitting all of her QuickTime events, because she does exactly that and ends up saving everyone involved. I mean, unless there was innocent pedestrians near the crash at the very end, but that doesn't really matter. The next day, again, an Elastigirl is visiting Winston. I don't think she's seen her family for a couple days now. It's a little concerning. Turns out everyone just loves superheroes now, by the way. Elastigirl saves a couple people, and everyone's all excited. Again, supers have been saving people since forever. Not sure why the change of heart all of a sudden. It's like when a game is getting stale, so the devs introduce a battle pass, and everyone just goes crazy.
What does your sign say?
That's really weird. Did Screenslaver give her that sign? They should find that child's parents immediately. Anyway, Winston is all hype because the world just likes supers again. Like I said, it's been like 3 days. How did public opinion change that quick? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. This is when Elastigirl is introduced to a bunch of other aspiring superheroes. I guess Winston and his sister Evelyn assembled a team. I'm gonna call them the B team because they're not the A team, let's be honest. There's a girl who plays Portal 2. There's a guy who's basically just an owl. There's even a dude who pukes all the time. I'm not kidding.
Medical condition or superpower, you decide.
Later that night, everyone's either drunk or passed out. Elastigirl is having a light conversation with Evelyn. The two are getting along very well and exchanging some jokes here and there. What an awesome friendship. I hope nothing bad happens to it. One day later, and with the other side of the family, Bob, Violet, Dash, and Jack Jack all go out to eat breakfast. So here's when I should mention that at the very beginning of this movie, like the very first shot in the entire film, Violet's love interest, Tony Ridinger, actually saw her true identity. Because of this, the Men in Black dude had to wipe his memory, but I guess he went a little too far, and turns out Tony just forgot about Violet as a person entirely. Violet tries to talk to him, but gets ignored. Violet tries to make plans with him, but gets ignored. Violet eventually finds out about the memory wipe and gets really angry at her dad. Seriously, I would not want to mess with her. It's basically just meant to showcase the difficulties in what raising a teen is like. It's really hard, I hear. So to make it up to her, Bob brought the family to what seems to be a regular restaurant, but actually ends up being the place Tony works at. If you're a normal person, you know this is a really bad idea. This shot gives us the second famous meme from this movie.
Good evening, everyone.
Normally, she doesn't ever drip like this.
The whole trip to the restaurant doesn't go well, to be honest. That's basically all that happens. Later that night, I think, this movie goes from daytime to nighttime like every scene. It's very hard to keep track of the days in this, to be honest. Elastigirl sets up a trap to find Screenslaver once and for all. She baits a broadcast from him, and with help from Evelyn's tech, she seems to be able to track him down. I'll be honest, it's a very cool scene, and eventually Elastigirl does catch the guy, but what I really want to focus on is the monologue that Screenslaver goes on during this scene. We actually got some crazy lines like,
watch her confront problems that you are too lazy to deal with.
Calling everyone at home lazy and incapable of helping themselves, let alone others. Also, one of my favorite lines in this speech is when Screenslaver says, and I quote, superheroes are part of a brainless desire to replace true experience with simulation. You don't talk, you watch talk shows. You don't play games, you watch
game shows.
Travel, relationships, risk. Every meaningful experience must be packaged and delivered to you to watch at a distance so that you can remain ever sheltered, ever passive,
ravenous consumers
who can't free themselves to rise from their couches to break a sweat and participate
in life.
There's a very clear message here about how the masses are oblivious to their own habits. Everyone is just a prisoner of the screen. And if any one of them at any time would just look up for a moment, maybe they'd realize that experiencing moments can be far more impactful than watching them. Now that's pretty deep, okay, and I applaud the writing for putting that much thought into this monologue. But also, is this about technology or superheroes? We're Syndrome. I'm bored. Anyway, Elastigirl finds the bad guy and beats him up finally. The whole scene is very bright and hurts my eyes a lot. I'm sorry to anyone watching this video late at night. But like I said, Elastigirl catches the Screenslaver and turns out it's just a guy, someone we've never seen before. Very interesting. Cutting to Bob, and I'm not gonna lie, this dude looks like he's reached rock bottom. I guess he's depressed because his wife is happy. He must be a Sneeko fan or something.
He literally looks like the nerd emoji, bro.
This all culminates in Bob freaking out and screaming at his kids. He realizes that he just can't take care of his kids by himself. Also, Jack is kind of going crazy with his powers, so he needs help. Understandable. Frozone comes over to help out, but that doesn't really work. So in a last-ditch effort, Bob decides to pay a visit to an old friend, Edna Mode. The goat. This is literally just the first movie, but with the roles reversed. It's crazy. We get the whole indestructible suit bit at Edna's house again, but in this movie, the baby is also in the chamber, so I guess it's a little different. The suit that Jack is given is basically just a way for Bob to keep control of his kid from now on. Back home now, and there's a nice wholesome scene where we do see Violet forgive her father for what he did to Tony, which is nice. Again, Bob definitely isn't the best dad when it comes to actually executing anything, but his heart is in the right place. He loves his family, and at the end of the day, he just wants them to be happy, even if he is ridiculously jealous of his wife. Skipping back to Elastigirl, there's this big celebration because she caught Screenslaver. Everyone is celebrating, it's a fun time, but Elastigirl isn't actually convinced that she caught the right person for whatever reason. Elastigirl is snooping around a little to find out a bit more about Screenslaver's tech goggles. But then, in the biggest twist probably ever, we quickly see Evelyn put some goggles on Elastigirl to brainwash her. What? Screenslaver is a girl? Holy based. This twist happens pretty quick and is kind of convenient, but yeah, Evelyn has been the bad guy all along, and turns out she was just controlling that guy earlier to act like Screenslaver for that moment. He's just like a pizza guy, it doesn't even matter at all. We find out that although Winston loves superheroes because his dad trusted them, Evelyn actually hates and resents superheroes because when her dad called them all that time ago, while he was getting robbed or whatever, they didn't show up. Ever since then, she figures supers couldn't be trusted, and so she made this whole plan up and has been operating this Screenslaver character from the inside. Her big plan here is to get all the supers that she got together, control them, make them do really bad things, and make everyone hate supers yet again. The idea here is that she hopefully makes superheroes illegal forever. Evelyn calls Bob and says that she needs his help, so of course Bob puts on his suit and makes his way over. It's kind of funny because as soon as he leaves, the other superheroes who are all being mind controlled now show up at the house and try to kidnap the kids. Thankfully, Frozone is here to help, but even then, it's extremely close, and the kids only end up getting away because Frozone basically sacrifices himself to save them. Gotta love Frozone. I'm happy he's getting more love in this movie. That's a big plus, I'm not gonna lie. And the same thing for the kids, honestly. Cool characters all around. This is when Bob shows up to see his wife acting all weird. He got there pretty quick. I'm sure Elastigirl could have like slept at her own house this whole time, but whatever. Of course, this is a giant trap, and now Bob also gets the goggles on and is under mind control himself. So skipping to the next day, I think, this is when all the superheroes we've seen are now on some kind of mega yacht. I know that might sound a little confusing, so just to recap really quickly, random group of supers we met earlier, Elastigirl, Mr. Incredible, and Frozone are all on this boat, but under Evelyn's mind control. A bunch of world leaders, some other superheroes they invited, and Winston are also on the boat, but have no idea about Evelyn being evil. Also, Dash, Violet, and Jack snuck onto the boat somehow. How they got on there is not important, but they're here to save the day. Turns out Jack is actually playing with no clip on, so now his two siblings need to find him somehow. During this, there's some fighting that goes on between the kids and the B team. It's funny how these kids never really fought before, but they still beat the superheroes up. At the end of this long scene, the kids are actually about to die, but thankfully Jack shows us a power he's never actually done before and turns really big to actually squish the other supers. This is when all the not mind-controlled people get mind-controlled. Who saw that coming? Elastigirl gives some hypnotized speech that sounds like it was written by ChatGPT and delivered by R2-D2.
Mandated hiding and silence have made us bitter.
I am mad. We are evil now. The supers hijack the boat and plan on running it right into the city to cause some chaos. I'm not sure how much damage that'll really do, but I guess you could like hit a building. Maybe. This is when their kids find their parents, and I'm not kidding here, get this, they just take the goggles off and then everything's fine. Sure, they take them off with like levitation powers or whatever, but like, yeah, they just take them off. The parents don't attack initially, there's no convoluted weakness or something. Just take the goggles off and we're good to go. So with the whole squad back together, it's now become the OGs versus the B team. It's a pretty epic fight, and everyone here honestly gets some time to shine. I'm still a little confused on the owl guy. His head turns 360 degrees, I guess, is his power. Obviously, the OGs win because they're the best. Evelyn is now escaping with her brother, but Winston realizes what's actually going on somehow and leaves the server. Evelyn flies away alone now, but thanks to the Portal 2 girl from earlier, Elastigirl is able to board the plane to stop her. So this part's pretty funny because Evelyn basically has no powers at all. The writers had to find an interesting way to make this Elastigirl-Evelyn fight like an interesting scene. Basically, Evelyn flies really high, so Elastigirl is running out of oxygen, which is the whole bit. It doesn't last very long though, because before Elastigirl passes out, she finds a flare gun on the floor, and I'm not kidding, she shoots a window immediately, and then Evelyn gets sucked out and probably dies or something. I don't know. We never see her again.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
I'm just kidding. Elastigirl catches her. The other guys all stop the boat because they have superpowers. The city is saved. Everyone on the boat is safe. And that's kind of the end of the entire movie. Don't get me wrong. It's all epic. It's just kind of anticlimactic.
Sorry, she's rich and will probably get no more than a slap on the wrist.
First of all, Violet.
The fact that we have Saul Goodman talking about prison times is making this ending so much better. And get this, after all that, the legal status of every superhero has been restored, meaning they can all wear their goofy suits in public again. We get a quick scene of Violet starting over with Tony. They're about to go on a date, but there's this sudden crime happening nearby, so I'm not kidding, they drop Tony off and go save the date as a family. How epic. And that was the movie, Incredibles 2. Was it really that bad? A lot of people will tell you that it's miles behind the first movie, and it kind of is, but even still, this movie does actually have some stuff going for it. Sure, if you compare the two movies, this one falls flat and misses every expectation imaginable, but even saying that, I think it was still enjoyable to watch. I like that Frozone and the kids get more screen time. I like the comedy elements for the most part. Sure, the villain didn't feel that threatening, and the whole Bob being angry shtick got old quick, but at the end of the day, it was more of the Incredibles family, and that was all we really wanted to see, to be honest. This movie had a whole generation in a chokehold because of its hype. So many people I knew were excited to experience a brand new adventure with this family. We were all expecting more of the original, and even though it's almost the exact same in some places, it's also completely different in tone, themes, and overall execution. It's not a big reason, but that's why I would say Incredibles 2 tricked an entire generation. We thought it was gonna be a family go off and fight together movie, but it ended up being a mom fight while dad babysit movie. There you go. There's your answer. That's how it tricked everyone. There you go. Stop asking. Like and comment on the video if you enjoyed. It helps the channel out a bunch. If you'd like to become a member of the channel, it starts at only $1 and gets your name at the end of all my videos here. Also, it directly supports me and what I'm doing. Thank you so much to all my current members. I appreciate you all so much. Seriously, your support means the world to me. Paul Abdul scores this one a solid pair of mind control goggles out of 5. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Mr. Incredible.